The last mile. This editorial examines Pakistan's fiscal challenges. Here it comes. The coming IMF review is going to be successful, but the government is likely to emerge significantly more hamstrung at the other end. Hamstrung means severely restricted, a metaphor. This sentence means that while the IMF review will succeed, the government will face tougher fiscal constraints afterward. We should expect an embattled budget drawing up process as the search for more innovative means to address business community concerns collides with a fiscal effort that needs to try and plug our $600 billion gap in the revenue target before June. Embattled is an idiom meaning troubled or under pressure. Drawing up is a phrasal verb meaning preparing. Collides with is a metaphor meaning clashes with. Plug is a phrasal verb meaning fill in, a shortfall. This sentence means that preparing the budget will be extremely difficult due to conflicting priorities and a huge revenue gap. A number of recent moves are giving the game away. Giving the game away is an idiomatic expression meaning revealing the true situation. This sentence means recent actions expose underlying fiscal weaknesses. For example, the finance minister is on record assuring the country that the review will be successful. On record means officially documented. This sentence means the finance minister has publicly promised a successful IMF review. Usually these assurances mean much has already been squared out between the authorities and the fund staff, so it's a safe bet that the review will be successful considering there is overperformance on the primary balance targets, which are a central plank of the program. Squared out is an idiom meaning settled or resolved. Primary balance targets are technical benchmarks for fiscal health. Central plank is an idiomatic expression meaning core element. This sentence means that strong fiscal performance indicates the IMF review is on track. Or, meanwhile, the induction of Husain Akhtar as an advisor to the Prime Minister is intended to make him a player in the coming bargaining between the business community and government over tax burden sharing. Induction means appointment or bringing in. Bargaining means negotiation. Tax burden sharing means dividing the tax load. This sentence means Akhtar's appointment is meant to involve him in negotiations over tax policies. It is unclear how much influence Akhtar will be able to wield, but he will certainly serve as a release valve for the hot air bubble that is building up in the business community with the ongoing stabilization. Wield means to exercise power. Release valve is a metaphor meaning a mechanism to relieve pressure. Hot air bubble is a metaphor meaning excess pressure or frustration. This sentence means that although his influence is uncertain, Akhtar is expected to help ease mounting business pressures. The country's apex chamber recently renewed its call for a sudden 500 basis point cut in the policy rate after seeing inflation drop to a 9-year low. Apex chamber means the top business association. Basis point means 1/100%. This sentence means that leading business groups are urging a steep rate cut due to low inflation. Mr. Akhtar's job will be to listen to all that these business leaders have to say, to nod along, feign empathy convincingly, issue the right assurances, keep both feet planted firmly in the corner of the business community, and commit to do his utmost to carry their pleadings to the Prime Minister. Nod along is a phrasal verb meaning to show agreement. Feign empathy is an idiomatic expression meaning to pretend to care. Keep both feet planted is a metaphor meaning to remain firmly committed. This sentence means Akhtar is expected to represent business interests, though his impact may be limited. And then he will fail roundly to move the needle in any appreciable way. Move the needle is an idiomatic expression meaning make a noticeable difference. This sentence means that despite his role, Akhtar will not bring about significant change. It's a tough job and somebody's got to do it. Mr. Akhtar has the perfect credentials for it. This sentence means that although the task is difficult, Akhtar is well qualified to handle it. Demands for rate cuts and rolling back of the tax burden will rise in the coming months. Rolling back is a phrasal verb meaning to reduce or reverse. This sentence means calls for lower interest rates and tax reductions will increase soon. Meanwhile, the government will pass the funds review, but will be left with a significant tax effort to put up in the closing months of this fiscal year. This sentence means that even with a successful review, a major tax challenge remains before year-end. This is the environment in which next fiscal year's budget will be drawn up, with the process having kicked off already. Drawn up is a phrasal verb, meaning prepared. Kicked off is a phrasal verb meaning started. This sentence means the next budget is being prepared amid significant fiscal challenges. If businesses are not taxed, taxes on salaried people will either have to be raised very sharply, or taxes on fuel and electricity will have to do the job. This sentence means that if business taxes are avoided, the burden will shift sharply to individuals or utilities. But in the meantime, there will be the matter of the Rs 600 BN gap in the revenue numbers, which, according to a report in this newspaper, could grow to Rs 1 trillion by the end of the fiscal year in June. This sentence means the current revenue shortfall might escalate from Rs 600 billion to Rs 1 trillion by June. Plugging this will require new taxes, and according to the same report, those tax measures have already been agreed to. Plugging is a phrasal verb meaning filling a gap. This sentence means new tax measures have been set to address the shortfall. They include higher advance income tax on imports, a 1% raise in withholding tax on supplies, services, and contracts, and a 5% hike in the federal excise duty on soft drinks, according to the same report in this paper. Advance income tax means tax collected upfront on imports. Withholding tax means tax deducted at source. Excise duty means a tax on specific goods. This sentence means specific tax increases have been agreed upon for various sectors. This, in a nutshell, means burdening business activity further with more taxes, which is better than burdening the common citizenry, or worse still, burdening salaried individuals. In a nutshell is an idiomatic expression meaning in summary. This sentence means that taxing businesses is seen as preferable to taxing individuals. Consider for a moment that the collection of direct taxes has increased by more than Rs 630 BN in the first 6 months of this fiscal year, by comparison to the same period last year. Direct taxes mean taxes levied directly on income. This sentence means direct tax revenue has risen significantly compared to last year. This is the juice being squeezed out of salaried individuals, who are the most easily juiced group in the entire tax system. Juice is a metaphor meaning money extracted. Easily juiced is an idiomatic expression meaning readily exploited. This sentence means that the increased tax revenue is largely coming from salaried workers. If businesses are not taxed, taxes on salaried people will either have to be raised very sharply, or taxes on fuel and electricity will have to do the job, fueling inflation and burdening the poor at a time when they have already been crushed by the inflationary fire that raged from 2021 till 2024, wrecking their purchasing power. Fueling is a phrasal verb meaning driving up. Inflationary fire is a metaphor meaning severe inflation. Wrecking means destroying. This sentence means shifting the tax burden to individuals or utilities will worsen inflation and further harm the poor. It is a tough reality, and someone has to bear it, and the most fit and proper place to put the burden of the next round of taxes is on the business community. This sentence means that despite the harshness, the business sector should be the one taxed further. This is the job that gets going once the IMF review ends successfully. Gets going is a phrasal verb meaning begins. This sentence means tax measures will be implemented after the IMF review succeeds. The job will involve some skillful politics, and eventually it will take nothing less than those two dreaded words in Islamabad, structural reforms. Skillful politics means tactful negotiation. Structural reforms is an idiomatic expression meaning fundamental changes to the economic system. This sentence means that effective fiscal measures will ultimately require major systemic reforms. These words are acquiring the status in our time that the words do more had back in the War on Terror heyday. This sentence means that structural reforms have become a cliché, much like do more once was. So often are they repeated without any actionable specifics that those running things in Islamabad betray a slight sense of irritation upon hearing them. This sentence means that the constant repetition of these words has led to frustration among policymakers. They're not wrong. These words have now almost been reduced to a mantra. Like a prayer, they are good words with which to end a policy conversation. This sentence means that although overused, the phrase structural reforms is often used to conclude discussions without concrete actions. But look at where we are without them. Not even at the midway mark of our latest fund program, and already talking about more revenue measures, more taxes, more spending cuts, and more wrangling between business and industry. Wrangling is an idiomatic expression meaning bickering or disputes. This sentence means that even before completing the IMF program, discussions of additional fiscal measures have already begun. So what is more irritating here? Watching our economic conversation devolve into a ritualistic invocation of mantras, or watching our economy go round and round the same peg, but with the leash shortening, with the cycles getting tighter? Round and round is an idiomatic expression meaning in a repetitive cycle. Leash shortening is a metaphor meaning increasing restrictions. This sentence means it is frustrating to see our economic discourse and performance remain stagnant while conditions worsen. What is worse, the déjà vu our economy gives us, or the déjà vu that the language we use to discuss it with? Déjà vu is a French term meaning the feeling of having experienced something before. This sentence means both the economic situation and the repetitive language used are disheartening. For now, there is no sign of any structural reform on the horizon. This sentence means that no major systemic changes are expected soon. Yes, they have passed legislation on agriculture income tax, but there is no work being done on the machinery with which to actually activate this revenue line. This sentence means that although laws have been enacted, practical implementation remains lacking. Services has failed to step into the net when offered incentives under the last budget. Step into the net is a phrasal verb meaning fill the gap. This sentence means the services sector did not deliver on the promised incentives. Property and real estate is left, but this sector is notoriously undocumented, so no telling how much can credibly be squeezed out of them. Notoriously means widely known for negative reasons. Squeezed out is an idiomatic expression meaning extracted. This sentence means the real estate sector is poorly recorded, making revenue extraction uncertain. If they don't get going with the tax reforms, then there will be one exercise with which to close this fiscal year, and another in the forthcoming budget with which to open the next fiscal year. Get going is a phrasal verb meaning start. This sentence means without tax reforms, repetitive fiscal adjustments will continue. This is what the last mile of this year will look like. Last mile is a metaphor meaning the final phase. This sentence means the fiscal year will end with ongoing fiscal challenges and adjustments. The writer is a business and economy journalist. This sentence means the author specializes in reporting on business and economic issues. Khurram.Husain@gmail.com. This is the writer's email address. Published in Dawn,